Four, three, two, one. Hi, I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. We had a great time up in Minneapolis. For those of you who were there, thanks for coming. It was a lot of fun and great time afterwards. And we'll be up there again. And we're coming up on one in Milwaukee, which I have to get the details done on probably today and start sending it out. So that was great. We're heading into the holidays. Heaven help us. I hope I can fit in my turtlenecks. Anyway, let's cover the waterfront this morning. I found a really interesting article that said basically it's time for marketers to stop misrepresenting fathers in marketing as bumbling and inept. Well, for years you sent us surveys and things that said women represented 90% of the buying power of America. And so why wouldn't we? you know. Well, that I think is a really funny move is when the laundry detergent companies start putting the men in there doing the laundry. It's, you know, either the men are now getting control of the buying power, or I don't know what's going on. But this article basically goes on in Adweek goes on to say that there's some capable dads. I put in a dishwasher. I went up to my daughters and she said, I got a project for you, Dad. My dishwasher isn't working right. Can you fix it? I said, well, I'm not sure. She said, should I call somebody? I said, no, you can buy a dishwasher on Craigslist for less than the guy will come to look at yours. And yours looks ugly anyway. So we ended up buying a $1,200 Axos Swedish two-motor dishwasher. They go for like $1,200. We got it for $80, and me and the father-in-law put it in on Friday. So fathers are capable of some stuff. And then on Saturday, I took the lawnmower off the tractor and put the snowblower on it, so we're ready for winter. The point is that none of us are stereotypes, and don't get too bent out of shape. I wanted to do an update on GDPR because this kind of stuff's going on. So Canada passed a law that said a law was okay to go for a lawsuit was okay to go forward on against McDonald's over Happy Meal ads. Now the whole shtick is that some lawyer is going to hit up McDonald's for millions of dollars, and you can file for payment. This is the perfect lawsuit for a lawyer because all I'm going to get is the some share of the money I've spent on Happy Meals. So the lawyer's going to get millions, and who's going to bother filing for a $2 rebate? I mean, they might as well just give out coupons for free Happy Meals for a while or something. That would be a better settlement than give all the money to the lawyer. But the point is that Canada passed a law that said you can't advertise to children under 13, which sounds really innocent and reasonable. And then somebody turns around and whacks McDonald's for advertising to kids. I remember the department store would have the toys for Christmas at the front of the store, and you'd have to walk through there for anything else you'd want. That should be a class action lawsuit. That's the first thing that jumped into my head. But this is what happens when you pass crazy laws that give people powers that they don't deserve and need, and mostly it means giving lawyers these powers. And so, anyway, moving on. Interesting articles on the downstream of GDPR. You probably saw the announcement from Royal Mail that their profits are half, and their employees are mad because they had to wait 5 years before cashing in their stock, which is just coming up, and the stock tanked, like super tanked. And then they're going to want to sell their stock anyway, so they get ripped off. It's just a mess, and it really is in the lap of the GDPR. Well, what is the GDP? And so now what's going on is now we're starting to get legislation in the United States that mimics GDPR, right? And there were some big disaster stories. J.D. Williams, who's one of the biggest mailers in the UK, just decided to erase all of their customer history. And, it sounds like, oh, that's a victory for consumers. No, it isn't, because what we use customer history for, I don't ever look up somebody's name and say, who bought this? I don't care. But what we do is we take millions of names and we and we look at who bought and who didn't buy, and then we look at what the important factors are. Like, we're working on post-Christmas mailings, and what we find is, and we found this for years, is that the people who bought at Christmas aren't as necessarily as good as the people who've been buying off Christmas. But it takes a couple of years of data to figure that out, because there isn't much data. The fact is, big data is very, very thin and worthless. So you got to have millions and lots of it just to make any sense of it whatsoever. Anyway, so this article says that now we're getting federal legislation because the California Consumer Privacy Act is GDPR on steroids. Actually, it has some limits to it that are actually better than GDPR. But it's not official yet, and it won't become law until 2020. Everybody agrees it'll probably be revised, and enforcement can't even start until 6 months after that. So you got a little time. You're saying to yourself, oh, I got time. The problem is that now, you'll get New York and Massachusetts, and they'll each have their own. It says we can't have that California legislation be California's, then have New York do it, Massachusetts do it. It's just not going to work. Believe me, it's going to be total chaos. What we're basically seeing with the Nexus decision being nullified, the 50-year-old precedent just being thrown out the window, is now companies have basically no protection against legislation and regulators from all states coming after them with no regard to where they live or whose jurisdiction they're under. If they do business in a state, they're potentially fair game. And even if all we see is the regulators descending on the companies, it's just going to put everybody in jeopardy, put all businesses in jeopardy. And we'll be left with a few huge ones standing that can fend it off. But small business and medium-sized businesses will be dead. So this is very, 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 very serious stuff. Now, if you don't think that's serious enough, and this might be just for keeping your data more than a year or two. Now, Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat of Oregon, and yes, I'm a kind of a libertarian, I'll admit. I'm not too happy with either party, but now we've got the children back in charge, and they're going to put senior executives of companies that misuse consumer data in jail for 10 to 20 years. You're going to want to go into nonprofits or probably just go into government service. I think it's a little bit hypocritical that we pass stringent consumer protection data laws while the federal government is collecting data on everything that you do. In fact, using those same companies to collect the data for them. I think it's hilarious. But anyway, 10 to 20 years in jail for senior executives who fail to follow the rules. You think the senior executives know the rules? In many cases, in the GDPR, it's almost impossible to follow the rules. They're mutually exclusive. If you follow the rules, like, I want to be forgotten, take my name off your list, and then you rent the list because you're just renting compiled names and you mail it, guess what happens? Guess what happens? What happens is that person gets another catalog and comes at you and says, you have no right to mail me again. I told you not to. No, you didn't tell me not to. You told me to erase your name from my file. If I erase your name from my file, I can't protect you anymore. Then your names are out there in the marketplace. Fair game. Sorry. And, what's getting crazy is that I'm working with a company that we had a catalog for years, and they sold it, and now we're starting it up again. And their head of IT quit because she said it was immoral to mail people that didn't give us explicit permission to mail them. Now, okay, here's the problem with that thinking. And this is the kind of thinking that's going rampant across the world all of a sudden. The thinking is, you have to tell me that you want my offer. How? How would you know about my offer? You can't. You don't know. You've never heard of me before. How do I get the word out about my new product that's going to save your life? The new drug that's going to save your life. How do you get that information? Well, we have to ask you first before we can let you have any information. If we give you information you may or may not need, we can't. It's the end of commerce. It's the end of commerce. And as a libertarian, we have a business free speech right? You have an address. You are part of the community, and Mailing is not really an invasion of privacy. The Supreme Court ruled that, independent of the Quill case. So anyway, what to do? I'm going to fit this in. What to do? Join the Catalog Mailers Association if you're a mailer. Join NEMOA, NEMOA, if you're e-commerce or of any sort, or a mailer. Great. Get in the fight. Start challenging this stuff. It's life or death for commerce.